Hi, Tushar.
Hey, David.
Hi, okay, I can hear you, I can see you, and your logo is good, so you're good to go.
Great, thank you.
All right, see you in a bit. Hi,
David.
Stacey.
Hi,
Hi.
can you hear and see me?
I can hear you. Hang on, let me see you. Okay, there you are. Yeah, I can see you, I can hear you. Your logo is good, so you're good to go.
Great, thank you. I deleted the bad one, so thank you, and I will talk to you shortly.
Will do. Bye-bye.
All right, David, it looks like it's 6:30. Do we have everyone here?
Sure, yes, I believe we do. I believe we have all commissioners are present.
Okay,
And we are currently live on all streaming platforms and cable channels. Everything is good to go when you're ready to call.
great, thank you. I do want to note that you are all stuck with me again as your acting chair this evening, as Commissioner Hoopengarner is not able to attend our meeting tonight. So in an effort to protect public health and prevent the spread of COVID-19 coronavirus, AB 361 has authorized public meetings to take place via teleconference because state and local officials are recommending measures to promote social distancing. This Planning Commission meeting is being conducted via teleconference on the city's website and is also provided on a wide array of streaming platforms to offer access to the public to the fullest extent possible. WehoTV staff have confirmed that this Planning Commission meeting is currently streaming successfully on Spectrum Channel 10 and online at weho.org/WehoTV. In addition, and as a courtesy, this meeting is also successfully streaming on the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/WehoTV and on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Android TV. WehoTV staff monitor this broadcast on all platforms throughout the meeting and will notify the Planning Commission Secretary should broadcast disruptions arise. Please do not interrupt the live meeting by calling or texting Planning Commissioners about difficulties viewing the meeting. In addition, you may call in to listen to this meeting by dialing 669-900-6833. Again, that is 669-900-6833. And entering meeting ID 889-1656-2775, and then press the pound sign. Again, that meeting ID is 889-1656-2775, followed by the pound or number button. Please understand the internet speeds, device reliability, third-party platform reliability, and individual or personal technical issues are out of the scope of this broadcast. If you are experiencing viewing difficulties while watching this live stream, please reload the page or visit weho.org/WehoTV to access our official live stream and to view a list of other available streaming options and a guide to troubleshoot your connection. If you continue to experience difficulties, you can also call 323-848-3151. Again, that's 323-848-3151. And with that, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a regularly planned meeting of the West Hollywood Planning Commission. It is Thursday, November 18th at 6:33 p.m. I do have a question of our city attorney. If I'd like to make a request or recommendation for an adjournment, at what point within the agenda would it be appropriate to do that?
Why don't you do it with approval of the agenda?
Okay, great. Thank you, Lauren. All right. So with that, we'll move on to item 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I need someone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Caballero, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of course.
Thank
Hand
you.
over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for playing and for being game to my incredibly last minute request. Item 3 is roll call. David, can you please call roll?
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Tonight, Chair Hoopengarner will be absent from the proceedings, so all roll call votes will reflect that. Commissioner Vincent.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Lombardi.
Here.
Commissioner Dutta.
Here.
Commissioner Carvalero.
Here.
Vice Chair Jones.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you, David. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. I would like to ask that we adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of 2 individuals who are near and dear to people in our community. The first of those being the late father of our chair, Lynn Hoopengarner, Dr. Roger Allen Hoopengarner. He was professor emeritus at the Michigan State University Department of Entomology and a world-renowned expert in apiculture, or the study of honeybees. In addition to being an author and speaker, he was an active and committed volunteer throughout the local community, as well as many beekeeping associations throughout the country. I also don't think Chair Hoopengarner would mind me saying that his passing highlights the importance of vaccination and booster vaccinations to protect not just you, but the people you love and the more vulnerable among us from COVID. I'd like to extend my, and I hope the rest of the commission's, deepest sympathy to Chair Hoopengarner and her family. The second is Kathleen Stevens, mother of Jake Stevens. Jake works at Farian Capital and is a regular presence at our planning commission meetings and city council meetings and city events. Ms. Stevens was the daughter of immigrants, a lifetime resident of Northeast Los Angeles, and a first-generation college student. Just want to give our thoughts to Mr. Stevens and his family at this very difficult and very sad time. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as is. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Unless there are any other changes, there's only one public item tonight, so I hope that's okay. David, can we go ahead and call roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Carvalero,
Yes.
Commissioner Dutta,
Yes.
Commissioner Lombardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jones,
Yes.
and the agenda is approved as presented for Thursday, November 18th, 2021.
Great, thank you. Item 5 is approval of the minutes. The first set of minutes is approval of the minutes from the October 21st, 2021 meeting. This is an item that was continued at our most recent meeting at the request of staff. Any changes or requests for changes to those minutes? Okay, there being none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as it is currently laid out?
I'll approve.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Vincent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Dutta, thank you very much. David, can you call roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Dutta,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Lombardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Carvalero,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jones.
Yes.
And the minutes are approved as presented for October 21st, 2021, and continuing the minutes for November 4th, 2021 to December 2nd, 2021.
Great, thank you. You beat me to it. I was just going to say that. Excellent. Item 6 is public comment. I just want to note that this is for general comments only. If you are here to speak on tonight's sole agenda item, you should wait until the public comment portion of that item to comment. David, do we have any public speakers at this time?
I'm receiving a public speaker request for the general comment section. I do have several callers on the platform with us. If there is anybody that would like to speak at this time as a general comment only, please *9 for me from your telephone, and that will let me know you'd like to speak for a general comment only. And Chair, I do have one. One moment, please. Okay, this is from caller. The last digits are 6455. Please state your name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thanks, David.
Just hit *6 for us, and you can proceed.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes to speak. State your name, please.
Yes, I apologize if I misunderstood, but my name is Kyle Patterson, and I would like to speak on item 11A. We haven't got to that part yet, correct?
That is correct. So
that's
when we
correct.
are ready,
I apologize. Thank you.
that's fine. We'll call you when public comments are available for that item. Just stay with us.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Chair, it looks like that's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. So moving right along, item 7 is our director's report. I will hand over the floor to Mr. John Kehoe.
Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the Commission. John Kehoe, Director of Planning and Development Services. So just a couple of updates on what's going to the City Council on December 2nd. So let's see, oops, I moved the wrong count. Okay, there we go. So we have 1301 North Fairfax Avenue. That was an item before the Planning Commission a couple of months ago. So that was on appeal and it's going to the City Council on December 6th, as well as the billboard project at 9165 Sunset Boulevard. So those items that went to Planning Commission are going to Council. Some other items that might be interest to people are we're going to have an item on robot delivery. You may have seen some pink robots on the street recently. We're doing some testing on that. We're going to have a presentation on the public benefit process for council members. We're scheduled to have our post-pandemic land use action plan talked about. And also there'll be an interesting item on housing capacity study on city-owned property. So there's a lot of interesting items on the upcoming City Council agenda. Also, I want to point out that you may have heard about SB 9, which is a new state law that allows people who own single family zoned lots to subdivide those lots into 2 and then construct 2 units on each lot. So that would wind up being 4 units on what was formerly a single family zoned property. West Hollywood doesn't really have very many lots in that category. Almost all of our R1B areas like West Hollywood West and Norma Triangle and other areas, while they're zoned R1, they're R1B, which means they already allow for 2 units. And if the lot is big enough, you could actually get 3 units on those sites. So this law doesn't actually apply to those areas, but it does apply to maybe 50 or so lots in the city. And so we are going to be bringing an ordinance to the Planning Commission and Council at the beginning of next year so we can have city regulations that address that change in the state law. So that's just to let you know that that's coming forward because the law does go into effect on January 1. And then finally, I do want to express my condolences also for Chair Lynn Hoopengardner for the loss of her father and also to Jake Stevens for the loss of his mother. My thoughts are with both families.
Thank you, John. That's a lot. It's a very packed council meeting we have coming up.
Chair?
The next, oh, yes, please.
I'm sorry, we do have one public speaker there that did want to get in. He's from our Public Safety Commission.
Sure, no problem. Just
Okay.
please state your name and city of residence. You'll have 3 minutes.
Go ahead, Mr. Oliver. Do *6 for us, please.
That work?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes, please.
Oh, wonderful. Well, good evening, esteemed commissioners. My name is Robert Oliver, and I serve on the Public Safety Commission. I'm actually the Public Safety Commission's liaison to the Planning Commission, so I wanted to introduce myself tonight and also give you my contact info, which I'll forward to staff as well. My email is simple. It's Robert, the letter B, and Oliver at iCloud.com. So if any public safety related issues come across your desk or you hear from anyone in the community, you can feel free to connect them with me. I am also here tonight as a proud West Hollywood resident. I'm concerned with the lack of affordable housing in our city. And, I believe it's caused by a shortage of housing units. I think it's a simple supply and demand issue. And I can imagine that you as commissioners are put in a difficult position, balancing the needs of current residents with building housing for future residents. And I just wanted to lend my voice as a resident in support of building the housing, affordable housing that we so desperately need in this city to not only make housing affordable for current residents, but to build the housing we need for future residents. So I thank you for your time tonight and your service to the city, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks.
Great,
Thank you, sir.
you.
That's all we have, Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm out of order here. 1 second. Let's see. Okay, next item is item 8. That's items from commissioners. Do we have anyone who would like to speak at this time? Commissioner Vinson.
Thank you, Vice Chair. David, can you mute? It looks like there's still a couple callers that are unmuted. Thanks. I wanted to take this time to announce that I will be stepping down from my seat on the Planning Commission. I've had some major changes in my personal and professional life, and unfortunately, I'm unable to continue to give the Planning Commission the full commitment, dedication, and thoroughness that it deserves. It has been an absolute privilege and honor to serve my city and my community on this commission. Thank you to all the staff and fellow commissioners for all your support along the way. And especially thank you to Council Member Seppi Shine for giving me this opportunity and entrusting me with this role. I certainly hope that I have the opportunity to serve again in the future. And tonight will be my last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vinson. You will be dearly missed, but I really do wish you all the best and hope that we will serve again together soon. Any other commissioner comments at this time? All right.
I have some comments actually.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner
Commissioner Lombardi, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, my condolences to Chair Hoopengarner and Jake Stevens. I know it's really challenging when you lose family members, so I'll be thinking of them. And Commissioner Vinson, it's been really nice having you here on the Planning Commission. So you'll certainly be missed, and I really appreciated your thoughtful input during hearings, especially with construction matters and your detailed eye when we were reviewing projects. So I just wanted to note that as well. And I also do want to encourage people, if able to, if your doctor recommends it, to get the COVID booster shot if you can. I actually just got mine today, so I have a headache slowly coming on right now. So apologies if I make less sense as this meeting goes on, but I think it's really important, especially with the holiday season and people traveling coming up. And you know, as much as people may feel that they'll be able to, you know, weather a case of COVID or strong, there's still the unknown. But it's also about the community at large, and you know, putting elderly or people at risk in a situation where they may be exposed to the virus. And as we're seeing, there's a lot of breakaway cases. So I do feel it's really important, and I wanted to remind everyone of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lombardi. Any other comments from commissioners at this time? All right. Looks like there being none, I will move on to item 9, which is consent calendar. There is none. Item 10, this is unusual, public hearings. There are none, which takes us to item 11, which is new business. This is 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard, recirculated draft environmental impact report. I think just quickly before I hand this over to Laura Yelton, who's our highly capable staff lead on this project, I just want to, for context and to appropriately frame discussion and comment on this item, I want to just say that a draft environmental impact report is a draft of an environmental impact report, and it's an informational document that's intended to inform the public and public agency decision makers about the significant environmental effects of a project, identify possible ways to minimize those significant effects, and describe reasonable alternatives to the project. The purpose of this agenda item tonight is to obtain comments and feedback for this draft EIR for the proposed mixed-use project at the site at 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard. We will only be discussing the draft EIR, and staff will be taking copious notes and transcribing all comments and suggestions and questions from the community and the commission, so that they can work with the consultant to respond to them as part of the final EIR. So this is a very important part of the public process for any large project or that meets the threshold for coming before Planning Commission. But this is not the last stop. There will be other opportunities for you to speak and to read materials related to the project. I encourage you to be involved in it, but again, this is only items related to the draft environmental impact report tonight. And with that small TED Talk, I will hand this over to Lori Yelton, who's going to introduce the project, give a brief background, and then the city's environmental consultant and traffic consultant will present an overview of the EIR and the process. We'll then move into questions of staff from commission, then public comment, and then commissioners will be able to give their feedback. And with that, Lori, take it away.
Thank you, Vice Chair Jones and commissioners. Good evening. Before you tonight is a recirculation of the draft environmental impact report for a mixed-use project. Sorry, let me share my screen. Sorry. Okay. Before you tonight is a recirculation of the draft environmental impact report for a mixed-use project at 8555 Santa Monica Boulevard. This meeting tonight is strictly to obtain comments, as Vice Chair Jones stated, and feedback for the draft EIR in order to adequately address all aspects of the environmental document. The original draft environmental impact report was prepared for a previous version of this project and was circulated for a 45-day period, public review period. However, the EIR was not certified and no decision was made. After the public comment period, the project site was further expanded to include an additional residential lot and other modifications. The city's environmental consultant, Rincon Consultants, has prepared the recirculated DEIR to analyze environmental impacts of the proposed project based on changes made to the project as well as regulatory changes after its original circulation in 2017. Since the time of circulation, the project site has been expanded to include an adjacent single-family residential property at 8552 West Knoll Drive, adjacent to the existing project site. In addition, Senate Bill SB 743 eliminated level of service as a basis for determining significant transportation impacts effective July 2020. And in November 2020, the city adopted new guidelines to measure transportation impacts under CEQA based on the vehicle miles traveled, also known as VMT. The city has determined that the changes to the project and the new VMT guidelines constitute significant new information such that recirculation of the DEIR is required. One of two unavoidable impacts studied in the originally circulated DEIR included traffic and LOS-based analysis. Because the City Council adopted VMT guidelines, which include VMT thresholds in 2020 to measure transportation impacts of proposed projects under CEQA, the VMT guidelines supersede and replace the existing LOS thresholds that were adopted in 2009, which was the methodology studied in the originally circulated DEIR. Therefore, LOS-based analysis are not included in this DEIR, and the VMT-based analysis was studied and updated in this environmental document. The proposed project was analyzed under the VMT screening criteria and was evaluated based on the 5 exclusion criteria to determine whether a quantitative VMT analysis was needed. The proposed project would not meet any of the exclusion criteria and therefore was presumed to have a less than significant VMT impact. Therefore, traffic impacts would be less than significant without mitigation related to VMT, which would not result in a considerable contribution to a cumulative VMT impact. Based on the analysis contained in the recirculated draft EIR, the proposed project's impact to noise was determined to be significant and unavoidable, with mitigation measures incorporated, which will reduce construction and operational noise impacts of the project at nearby noise-sensitive receptors, including nearby residents at the Ramada Plaza Hotel, to a less than significant level based on the noise thresholds established by the West Hollywood General Plan 2035 and its environmental impact report. All written correspondence received during the 45-day draft EIR comment period and ends Monday, November 29th of this year will be responded to and included in the final EIR. This also includes comments, questions, and concerns raised at the Transportation Commission meeting last night and at the Planning Commission meeting this evening. Again, this discussion for the Planning Commission during this public comment period will be limited to the review of the draft EIR only, and the Commission will not be deliberating on the merits of the proposal or deciding to support or oppose the project at this time. In the coming weeks, staff will gather all comments on the draft EIR and will work with the environmental consultant to respond to each item of correspondence received during the comment period. This process usually can take a few months from the end of the comment period. We have our environmental consultant from Rincon Consultants, Carly Kaufman, present with us tonight, as well as Miguel Nunez from Fair and Pierce. I will now turn it over to Carly to discuss the draft EIR in a little more detail.
Good evening. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, commissioners, staff, members of the public. I'm Carly Kaufman with Rincon Consultants. We are assisting the city with CEQA compliance for this project. Let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this first couple slides have been covered a little, but just to re-emphasize, the purpose of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is really a disclosure and transparency law to disclose the potential environmental effects of a proposed action, identify ways to avoid or reduce those environmental impacts, consider feasible alternatives, foster interagency and intergovernmental coordination, and enhance public participation in the planning process. A little more detail on the timeline. As mentioned, this is a recirculated EIR. So originally the notice of preparation of an EIR, which is the initiation of environmental review process, was in 2013. There were also 2 scoping meetings held at the start of the process, one in 2013 and another in 2016 for a revised project. In 2017, the draft EIR was released for a 45-day comment period. There were 22 written comment letters received on that EIR. A final EIR was prepared, but was never certified, and the project was not approved at that time. As Lori mentioned, the project has been revised, and now we have revised and recirculated this draft EIR. The comment period is set to end on Monday, the 29th. We're anticipating the final EIR will be in spring 2020. As also mentioned, this is one opportunity for public comment, and then there will also be opportunities for the public to weigh in the public hearings, considering the final EIR and the proposed project when that is published. So why recirculation? As mentioned, here's a little image showing how the project site has changed since the 2017 draft EIR was published, with the addition of the parcel at 8552 West Knoll Drive. Because of the increased size of the project, there was also an increase in the number of units proposed and an overall increase in the amount of floor area for the project. Because the project's footprint changed and the size of the project changed, and also due to the changes in the regulatory environment, using vehicle miles traveled instead of level of service, it was determined that the EIR should be recirculated for a public review. Also to note, the entire EIR is being recirculated. Under CEQA, you don't necessarily have to recirculate the whole EIR, but in this case, it was determined that the entire EIRs were being recirculated for public comment. Okay, just a brief summary of the analysis and conclusions. Here are a list of the impact areas that were found to have either less than significant or no impacts and did not require mitigation. A little asterisk here to note that in the original 2017 EIR, there was an unavoidable traffic impact at the intersection of Hancock and Holloway Drive during the PM peak hour based on West Hollywood thresholds. Because we are no longer using level of service analysis and are moved to VMT, we now have a less than significant transportation impact. Other issue areas that were found to be less than significant: aesthetics, agriculture, air quality, energy, greenhouse gas emissions, hazards, land use, mineral resources, population and housing, public services, recreation, utilities, and wildfire. And those issues are studied in depth in the EIR or in the initial study, which is an appendix to the EIR. Here are the issue areas where we did find that there were potentially significant impacts such that mitigation measures were required. There were mitigation measures, sort of standard mitigation measures to address potential impacts to nesting birds due to construction or removal around trees that could contain bird nests, cultural resources and tribal cultural resources for the potential discovery of buried resources, Also, for geology, a mitigation measure for procedures to address potential discovery of paleontological resources during construction. There are also mitigation measures required related to seismic safety and geotechnical considerations, and to address the need for potential dewatering during construction. For noise, there were several construction noise mitigation measures required, but construction noise is still found to be a significant and unavoidable impact due to the potential for construction noise to affect nearby sensitive receptors. There's also a mitigation measure required for shielding of stationary sources such as generators on the project site. As mentioned, there was one significant and unavoidable impact identified in the EIR, which is related to construction noise. All other impacts were found to be either less than significant or less than significant with mitigation. There were 5 alternatives that were analyzed in the EIR. The first is the CEQA required no project or no development alternative. There was also an alternative analyzed where a project would be developed under the base zoning. So the project would not use the bonuses allowed under the mixed use bonus, affordable housing bonus. That alternative involved commercial development on the commercial zoned portion of the site and residential development on the residential zone portion of the site. There was also a reduced density project alternative considered, which involved no affordable housing bonus on the commercially zoned portion of the site. So a similar type of mixed use development, but to not to the same level of development or floor area ratio and the number of units as considered under the proposed project. There was also an alternative that involved a boutique hotel on the commercially zoned portion of the site and residential uses on the residentially zoned portion of the site. And an alternative that was suggested by members of the public during the scoping process that there should be no subterranean parking or development. Among these development options, alternative 2 and 3 were found to be environmentally superior to the project, and that they would be reduced size, reduced number of units, and incrementally reduce impacts for issue areas such as air quality and utilities. But they would not eliminate the unavoidable construction noise impact. Okay, so as mentioned, we're currently in the middle of the comment period on the draft EIR. We welcome your comments on the information, analysis, or conclusions of the recirculated draft EIR. We're asking for comments by the close of the comment period at the end of the day on November 29th. Here's where you can submit your comments by either mail or email. I'm happy to try and answer questions. If questions are very technical or detailed in nature, then it might be preferred to respond to them in writing in the final EIR. But happy to try and answer questions if I can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Lori, does that constitute all of staff's presentation at this time? You're muted.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. I just want to check with the city attorney. Given that this isn't an actual public hearing, but a new business item, should I solicit or should we solicit questions of staff from commissioners first, or should we move into public comment?
I think since the purpose of the meeting is really for public comment, maybe go to public comment first, then
Okay.
Commissioners can give their comments, and if there's some questions, they can come up organically during the commissioners' time.
Well advised. Thanks, thanks, Ms. Linker. Okay, with that, we will open up the floor to public comment. It looks like we have some numbers here. I don't want to assume they're all speakers. David, do we have public speakers on this item?
Yes, we do, Chair. Let me do this here real quick. I received a couple of comments, cards for public speakers. I forwarded everyone, and they are available online, all the public comments we have received to date. There was one that came in after the deadline, which I'll read into the record. But first, if there's anybody on the platform that does want to speak, just *9 from your telephone for me. That would show me that you do want to make a comment on this item. Our first public speaker here is Mark Hughes. He wrote in, he's from West Hollywood, and he states, "Our planet is burning. That's not hyperbole. It's scientific fact. So it's no good to posture and pretend to care about the environment or to want to prevent catastrophic climate change if we won't aggressively reduce vehicular driving and parking in favor of mass public transit, bicycling, walking, scooters, and green spaces. Likewise, the continued lack of adequate levels of housing and the obsessive opposition to tall buildings among the NIMBY crowded inevitably leads to urban sprawl, necessitating more roads, which leads to more cars and more pollution that accelerate climate change. The WeHo City Council should pursue policies that expand housing, particularly affordable housing, and that reduce roads and parking. Anyone who opposes new housing and who demands more parking and roads is condemning future generations to an unlivable environment. It is selfish and messed up. And that was from Mark Hughes, West Hollywood. That's all that came in after the deadline. We'll go on to public speakers on the platform with us. Our first public speaker will be with the telephone ending in 6455. Go ahead and unmute yourself, *6, state your name and city of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Patterson. I'm a member of the Southwest Carpenters. I live in the local area and real close to the job site. I'm actually on the streets of Hollywood. I believe that this project will have be impacted by the environmental impacts of the project. The city should require the project to be built utilizing the local skilled and trained workforce. Local hire and skilled trained workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy. In a recent 2020 report titled "Putting California on the High Road, a Jobs Climate Action Plan for 2030, the California Workforce Development Board concluded that investments in growing, diversifying, and upskilling California's workforce can positively affect returns on climate mitigation efforts. Moreover, just this year, the South Coast Air Quality Management District found that the use of local state certified apprenticeship programs that I'm a part of, or a skilled and trained workforce with the local hire component, can result in air pollutant reduction. Other cities have not hesitated to apply skilled and trained workforce requirements for private development projects in their city. Recently, the city of Hayward, Northern California, adopted skilled and trained workforce requirements into the general plan and municipal codes. Local skilled and trained workforce requirements can boost economic development and mitigate transportation and greenhouse gas impacts by minimizing vehicle mile travel. The project is not within the transit priority area. The only rapid bus within a half mile used to be Rapid Bus 704. Which has been permanently discontinued. The EIR improperly relies on the now discounted Rapid Bus 704. To conclude, the project is presumed to have a less than significant environmental impact on vehicular miles traveled. And lastly, none of the bus routes mentioned on Appendix G satisfy the requirements for the project to be considered within the transit priority area. This is a resident speaking, myself, that lives in the area, and I only benefit when project labor agreements require local residents to be hired on these job sites. The private stuff, I can't complete my apprenticeship program, and because there's no requirements there requiring skilled and trained workforce. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for considering and helping people that want opportunities and that need the help.
Thank you, sir.
very much. Oh, sorry, David. I'll let you play maestro with public speakers. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Our next speaker will be from the telephone ending in 8471. And that'll be followed with the telephone number ending in 2857. So the number ending in 8471, please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Give us your name and city of residence, please.
Thank you. I'm Karen O'Keefe of West Hollywood. The staff analysis sounds very reasonable, and I think this project should move forward. More density is essential to addressing our housing and climate crises. The area is very walkable and on the 4-bus line. It's a perfect place to build up rather than building out, which causes sprawl, pollution, and misery that's caused by long commutes. We also have arena goals to meet. This project does not involve tearing down any apartments or rent stabilized homes. It's a very sensible place to build more housing. That all said, I'm very disappointed that West Hollywood is continuing to require parking minimums. Our city professes to care about the climate crisis, but is imposing these parking minimums, which pours fuel on the fire. Personal transportation is California's #1 contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. As the LA Times editorialized in April, with California deep in a housing crisis that is degrading the state's quality of life, it's time to prioritize housing people over housing cars. When we moved here, despite being a 0-car home, every apartment my husband and I found in our price range included at least 1 parking space. Like so many, we are having to pay higher housing costs because of parking we don't need or want. An analysis quoted by the LA Times editorial found that parking requirements added $36,000 per unit of affordable housing. In addition to fueling the climate crisis and the housing crisis, cars are a major source of smog and air pollution, which kills 100,000 Americans every year. We have had an appalling number of unhealthy air days lately, and our city's parking minimums are contributing to all of this. In sum, I urge the approval of the EIR and this project, but I also urge the Planning Commission and the City Council to do away with all parking requirements moving forward and to start acting like we are in a climate emergency and housing emergency, which we are. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have one caller left that is showing interest in speaking. If there is anybody else on the platform that would like to comment on this item, please *9 for me from your telephone. That'll let me know that you want to speak, and we'll give you a chance to speak on this item. Our final speaker, it looks like, will be from the phone number ending in 2857. Go ahead and unmute *6. State your name and city of residence, please. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Justin. I am a resident in the complex that is adjacent to the proposed development. I recognize the need for increased housing density, but I think the main concern is how this proposed project is going to ultimately change the structure and fabric of the neighborhood that it's a part of. Initially, when the project was just on Santa Monica Boulevard, it wasn't going to fundamentally change West Knoll Drive. And I think that is the major concern of residents here on the street, is that what now is a nice, quiet place to live will be fundamentally changed by a project that is frankly too large and overbearing for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I have a couple more, Chair. Our next caller is from the telephone number 7791. Please go ahead, state your name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Was that bad?
Go ahead.
Did I call him? Yeah. I think it would have been better if I just was like holding the phone. I think. But...
Hey, Justin, we can still hear you.
Okay, let's go on to the telephone number ending in 1531. 1531, unmute *6 and state your name and city of residence. Hello, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Binur. Hi, my name is Binur Karadli, and I'm a West Hollywood resident, and I also live on West Knoll Drive, right next to the proposed development. And I do recognize the need for housing and affordable housing. However, This proposed EIR that was circulated in October of 2021 is quite different than the original one that was circulated in 2017 because it's much larger, it has more apartments, and it also covers an extra house, single house that is on West Knoll Drive. So my concern is that the neighborhood right now has a lot of greenery, and all of that seems to be diminished with this big development that, even though is probably good for our neighborhood, but it's a little bit too big. And I'm also concerned about the fact that the water table analysis, the geotechnical analysis, and analysis of the soil, especially when it comes to its neighbors as they start the construction, these are the issues that need to be addressed because we live in an earthquake zone, and this huge construction is going to affect all the neighbors, especially Ramada and our complex. So these are just a few of my concerns that I do hope will be addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And it looks like our last speaker will be from the telephone number ending in 7791. Go ahead and unmute, *6, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and city of residence. Go ahead.
Hi,
Chair.
sorry.
Okay.
My name is Mike O'Reilly. I live in West Hollywood at 8562 West Knoll, which is the parcel right next door to the property. It's actually surrounded by the property on two sides. And I agree wholeheartedly with the project going forward. I think it's I really do believe in that we really need to make more housing in West Hollywood. I am a bit concerned. The comments that Adam Kaufman provided on the behalf of the West Hollywood North Neighborhood Association. I'd like to associate myself with those comments because I do think that the construction project looks a lot different when you consider the way that it has expanded. Our development is, for all intents and purposes, about 30 feet above the grade on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I believe the project will be going down 3 floors on Santa Monica Boulevard into what is really a liquefaction zone, and is going to continue around our property for more than 270 degrees. So our property sort of is more or less 30 feet above Santa Monica, and will be about 30 feet below the peak of the project on West Knoll. So I'm not certain that the geotechnical analysis has been adequately redone to deal with the fundamental reality that we're this project that is going to be surrounded on two sides by the new project. There's a different grade. There's a liquefaction zone problem. There's the high water table problem. A lot of these are dealt with, I think, in the Mitchell Tsai letter that was submitted today, as well as the Adam Kaufman letter. So that's an important issue. Also, the size of the height of the building. I'm all in favor of the height benefits for affordable housing and for multi-use projects. But I think it's always important, and it's always difficult in those kinds of projects, to make sure that the green space is really green space and not sort of shadow space that happens to have some grass that doesn't really grow in it very well. That's kind of typical. And so from my reading, it looks like the green space in this project is sort of nominal, and the green space in our complex is going to be significantly shaded by the new development. So that's an issue I think that needs to be addressed. Based on the sight lines, based on the plans that we've seen, I have a couple of issues as well, which I suppose fell into the aesthetics category. We're not really able to tell from the project, but it sure looks to me like about a third of the bedrooms in our complex are going to be very close to what amounts to mostly concrete walls. I think some of them are a little bit articulated, but mostly concrete walls that, and I understand that that's somewhat inevitable, but some setbacks or some articulation, as was done in the case of the Ramada Inn. Some of the residents in our complex have used their properties for rental properties. So to the extent that it was a winning argument, a plausible concern for the Ramada Inn to be able to have settlement or accommodations made so that its rooms would remain rentable, I think that's also true for us. The value, it's not really just the value of the place, but the actual rental income from properties would be affected. And I guess my last issue is the shadow analysis.
Your time has expired, but go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay, just the shadow analysis that was done. I kind of question it just because it's much different from the actual drawings that were of the developer in the document. And I think it makes it look like some of the building is exposed to sunlight, which is true in some of the shadow analysis, but the place where people live in this complex, the bedrooms, are largely shaded in, more or less, 30 to 40% of the building. So it turns the bedrooms into shadow zones unless the walls are, the big retaining wall on the western side of the building is articulated somewhat. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Chair, that looks like that was our last public speaker. I just want to make sure that if there is anybody on the platform that hasn't spoke that would like to speak on this item, *9 for me. And we'll give you 3 minutes to speak. And Chair, it looks like we are all clear for public speakers for this item.
Great, thank you, David. City Attorney, I'm going to lean on you again. Do I need to close the public comment portion? Since it's not technically a hearing, but is a new business item?
Correct. It's not a public hearing. I think you can just bring it back to the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Comments.
So this will be a time for commissioners to synthesize the comments that we've heard, the letters that we received. We received several today and very close to the meeting actually, and prior, and ask questions of staff. So who would like to go first? Commissioner Caballero.
Sure. These are just notes that I made in sort of inefficiencies or insufficiencies in the EIR, and I have quite a few notes. But on section 2, page 12, the paragraph about project height and how they determine the building envelope. During our last discussion of this project, there was much debate about natural grade versus actual grade, which could potentially impact the envelope for this building. And there's no mention of that anywhere when they're determining or discussing the project height. So I'd like to see a little bit more clarification on that when the next time the EIR or DEIR comes back. Section 2, page 14, there's a sentence that kind of bumped me. It says primary commercial access to the project site would be from Santa Monica Boulevard, and residential access would be both from Santa Monica Boulevard and West Knoll. So the thing that's concerning me is the word primary, because during that last meeting that we had, we also emphatically requested that all traffic on West Knoll be residential and that there'd be no commercial access. So the comment that primary commercial access would be on Santa Monica Boulevard sort of implies to me that there might be commercial access on West Knoll. So I would just like to clarify whether I'm just, splitting hairs with terminology, or whether there is a potential for commercial to access the site via West Knoll. And it could be as simple as, FedEx trucks delivering to residential. And if that's the case, then that's totally fine, but it doesn't really specify or clarify. So I think that's important. So, the report talks about 50,000 trips per day is a typical on Santa Monica Boulevard, and this is only going to add 1.5% more trips to Santa Monica Boulevard. But we also know what our experience at Santa Monica Boulevard is right now, which is that there's a lot of traffic. So the addition of this building, to Santa Monica Boulevard and West Knoll is going to have impact. And one of the things that I noted was that there is a comment about how you can turn left on Santa Monica and turn right on Santa Monica into the commercial entrance on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I think this works at the Ramada because you don't have the same level of density at the Ramada, so you don't get cars lined up 2 or 3 spaces and then blocking traffic if you get the 4th car and it doesn't get all the way in. I was a little concerned that when you look at the diagram for parking, or when you look at the plan, if you're turning left on Santa Monica Boulevard into that commercial exit and you only have 2 or 3 cars stacking, which is what the diagram shows, if a 4th one goes in thinking that they're going to get across, will it create backup? And I'm just I'm just wanting to get it clarified. Will there be a ticket that needs to be pulled? Will traffic be able to move all the way in? And then this is part of a larger sort of clarification that I would like to see is we know that Santa Monica Boulevard along that section needs to be addressed. Crosswalks are going to need to change. That light, which is almost at the place, I think, where the commercial entrance to this development is going to be placed, will likely have to change. So I'd just like to see a clarification of that whole sort of what we're doing to mitigate the traffic, even though I know that this says that there's no substantial impact to traffic. We know that something's going to have to be done to deal with that. So I'd like to see a little bit of that. To me, the hydrology section seemed insufficient given what we know about the area and the water table level. And, in respect to Commissioner Hoopengarner, who, was felt very strongly about this, and given her experiences in the area, I would like to see further analysis on how the groundwater issue will be mitigated, especially given the fact that City Council just approved a $500,000 reconstruction for subsurface drainage systems in the area. I'd like to see more connection in that and sort of understanding how we're going to be dealing with that water table and mitigating any potential disasters. There was a public comment letter that talked about engineering, and while I understand that, engineering, the retaining wall at this point isn't feasible, it will happen later down the road. It would be at least, I think, helpful to us to understand conceptually the engineering approach that they're going to have for the retaining wall, so that we can sort of make some sort of value judgment as to whether this is kind of headed in the right direction, have a conversation about that. And that wasn't identified in the EIR. And I think it could be something very simple that staff could ask of the applicant or clarification in the DEIR as it comes back. And that kind of covers all my notes for right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Caballero. Who would like to go next? I'm going last, so okay. Commissioner Dutta, I saw your hand first.
Thank you. Bear with me, my notes are kind of all over the place here as well. A couple of things, and couple of my comments are going to be, slightly nitpicky just based on, what things that might need to be updated. For example, in the EIR figure 2-2, there's kind of a bird's eye view of or satellite image of the property. And it appears that the image is outdated in that it doesn't include the new-ish commercial development across the street. So you don't really get a full context of what currently exists there. It just has a big green open space. So I think that image, and it appears at 2-8 as well. So that should be updated. When it comes to discussions on the utilities at the property, utility section on page ES4 mentions electricity as well as the water and sewer, but does not mention natural gas. But then in the discussions about greenhouse gas emissions, there is mention of natural gas. So if there can be some clarification there as to, is natural gas part of this project? Also, the breakdown of the parking, what's required versus what is being proposed here, there isn't really any sort of specific breakdown as to what the different components of the project, what the parking requirements are for the different components and how those combine to create what the total requirement is, which I think will be helpful here, given that we are working with, multiple zoning, designations and uses here. Having that breakout here, I think would be particularly helpful. The same applies to it's table 614, which is alternative 4, and the parking, how it's being calculated there as well. I think that's the option for having a boutique hotel in the CC1 district. I just didn't see how that parking number, which I think was 224, how that came to be. So further explaining that, I think, would be helpful to understand how that option compares to what's being proposed for the development. Page 6-18, which is table 6-12. I think the heights for the CC1, for alternative 3, the heights for the CC1 and the R4Bs need to be flipped. One says 55, one says 45. I think they just need to be flipped. Looking at 4.5-11 impact N1, which looks at construction noise. The draft EIR describes the sensitive receptors here as including the residences around the area, but also, makes mention of the Ramada, even though it technically doesn't count as a sensitive receptor per the definition. It's being included in the conversations here. And it sounds like the mitigation that's being put in here, or not so much mitigation, but what's being recommended here is there's a complaint hotline that's going to be posted, and that's going to be the first step for anybody who is affected by construction noise before any actual corrective actions are being made here. And so, I'm just thinking back to a few weeks ago when we reviewed another draft EIR for a project on Sunset, and how there was already included a 24-foot sound barrier, which wasn't going to, take care of the whole sound issue, especially for higher up floors for the neighboring hotel. But given that this is another project with a hotel directly next to it, is that sound barrier even the starting point here? Is that something that couldn't be already, implemented at the time of construction, or is the process going to be to have to first wait for a complaint to be made here? So that was one observation I had on that. And similar to Commissioner Caballero's comments about the water intrusion issues, especially with the thoughtful letters that were sent in regarding this issue, people who live, residents that live in the area that have dealt with this directly. I think that certainly needs to be better addressed with the context of specific things that the city has been involved with lately to help mitigate that particular issue. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Dutta. Commissioner Lombardi, I think you are next.
Thank you. One moment here while I check through some of my notes. I guess first question I wanted to ask, I believe one of the public speakers made a note about buses and transportation, and I just want to confirm this site is in a transportation overlay or transit overlay region. Is that correct? Transit overlay region is included in at least a portion of this property. That was my understanding.
I don't know if that
Looking
question.
at the,
I see Miguel came on from Fair and Pierce, so he can probably answer that question.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the public. Yes, this the designation is known as a transit priority or high quality transit area or corridor. That is defined as a corridor that has peak hour transit service that is 15 minutes or less in frequency. This Santa Monica Boulevard is served by Line 4, which does meet that criteria. So it is located in a transit priority or high quality corridor transit area designation. It does qualify. It is in such an area, yes.
okay. However, it's only a portion of the property, correct? Since we're combining lots.
The entire property would be within the designation.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the general plan land use map, and it looks like it's only a portion of all the properties. Although I will admit this is a relatively small printout I have here. I don't know how much it really matters, but I know that there's been some questions previously about complexity of the project in terms of it being part of a residential zone and a commercial zone. But what I'd want to focus on is this is on a transit overlay zone. That's for sure the case, at least for a portion of a property.
The transit overlay zone is different than how you define a transit priority area in terms of doing the vehicle miles traveled analysis. So I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, some of the site may not be designated in your general plan as being, some having that overlay, but for the purposes of a VMT analysis, a transit priority area is defined as within a half a mile of, being in a transit corridor, and the site meets that criteria.
Okay, thank you. So one thing I wanted to note, looking at page ES2, this is just a consistency thing. Oh, sorry, it's actually page ES5. Alternative 2 is described as base zoning in the bulleted list, but it's also referred to as existing zoning in the paragraph following. And I think in general, base zoning is being used, but it'd be great if we're just consistent in that description throughout this document, so there's no confusion. I know it confused me a little bit, and it was right in the beginning of the document, but I believe most all locations are referring to alternative 2 as base zoning.
Yeah, that can be fixed. I believe it was previously called existing zoning into the original EIR, so just maybe a little inconsistency error that can be fixed.
So I just want to jump in and remind everybody, just in general, we're taking comments at this point. And so detailed questions about the project and about the application of the zoning and everything can come at the project hearing. And if you have questions, we can absolutely address those in the final EIR and in the staff report when it comes back. So a lot of the detailed questions, some of these things we'll just take in and then we can respond to it when it comes back.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. And some of these questions are coming up just based on comments I heard. So if anything needs to wait, just let me know. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to note was under concessions. I believe this project is looking for 2 concessions. I saw on page 2-12 that it's noting 3 associated regulatory concessions are being requested. I think it's 2. So just want to make sure that's picked up if it is 2. And then I have a question about, maybe this is more about the actual EIR study. So traffic and congestion, which is referenced throughout the document, including ES3, but other areas as well. Is the intent that all loading and unloading for packages, including the residential portion, will be done via Santa Monica? I know there's a reference to a loading zone where the trucks can come in. But I just wanted to put that out there and make sure that we're understanding that correctly, because that was noted within the report. Or drivers already going to be on West Knoll and they're just going to keep their trucks double park there even longer because there's another 100+ units ordering packages. So I just wanted to note that. I also do have a question / concern about grading and construction. That's also referenced in a few places, including ES4 and page 2-17. There's a note that the demo and construction is being described as a 5-month period. There's another location, I think it's on page 216 or 217, that notes demo excavation and shoring is 6 months. And then there's reference to about 5,134 round trip truckloads per day for excavation. And that doesn't include debris hauling for the existing structures that are on site. So if you just kind of do the math to that, that's an incredible number of construction vehicles per day. I think it comes down to like 1 every 10 minutes. So I'm questioning if that construction period is correct. And I can't help but think that there's a much larger negative impact to having trucks constantly coming / how would they unload or receive material that quickly? So that seems a little funny to me, and I feel like it maybe needs a little more clarification. I guess it's just not adding up to me. I also have a question. There's a note about shared parking credit. Is that something that can maybe be explained for clarification? There's 10 spots that were noted that would require approval as shared parking. Maybe that can be explained. What that would mean. And then I guess this is just a note, live work units, those are actually not being counted toward the RENA numbers currently because those go in as commercial. I guess that's an FYI. Just going down my list of comments and questions here. There's also been a lot of public comments about the sun studies. And I will say when I was going through this, it was really hard to see those small images. I don't know if it was an appendix that I somehow missed, but it would be great to see that they're a little bit larger and also to verify that study as modeled is accurate to the current plans of the building. I know in particular with the new property that's been added in, there's now a residential building that is right up against the property. And I completely understand their concerns with sun and having this large structure right behind them. So I think it's important that be evaluated and disclosed as it really will be, and that it's clear for everyone to understand what that is. I think that's really key to understanding this project and the success of it. So I think it's important to address that. I feel like it's been a concern with the Ramada, but now we actually have some additional impact with this new design. And so it warrants a review with the neighborhood at large as well, because those are residents that will be here more permanently than people in the hotel. And I think that's really it. I did have some thoughts on the alternatives, but I'm not sure if now's the time to really provide those. So I'll leave it at those comments unless there's additional discussion that we're supposed to do today. But my understanding is we're just noting the report itself, not our opinions on some of the alternatives.
Lori, can you clarify just for the record if this would be the appropriate time to speak about alternatives, or if that's better done at public hearing?
Since they're in the EIR, it might be a good idea to talk about them tonight. This might be a good forum for that. Jennifer?
Okay. You know, just if you have, and Lauren can jump into it, I see her getting ready, but I think we're looking at the adequacy of the EIR here, and we want comments on that. So if there's enough information in the record that you feel like you can make a decision when the time comes. So in that respect, if you feel like there's something missing there, if it's an opinion on the project or more like deliberation on the merits of the project, then that's probably what we want to stay away from. But if it's something to do with the adequacy of what's presented in the draft EIR, this is the time. So.
Sure, appreciate it. That's helpful. I think my comments are more about the actual alternatives rather than the EIR and how that applies. So I would just note that as long as we're being consistent, and at least in my review, it seemed like there was some consistency there with how the alternatives were being reviewed, then I don't have any comments right now with regards to the actual EIR study on the alternatives. So I guess I would say that's my last comment.
Thanks, Commissioner Lombardi. Commissioner Vinson, I think you're the only one left to go besides me, unless I'm totally missing someone. That would be embarrassing. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Thomas, you're not in the square. You're not in the squares where the commissioners are. So sorry that I missed you. You're also welcome to go next if you like.
Did Commissioner Vinson raise her hand? I can't see.
Go ahead, Commissioner Thomas.
Okay, thank you so much. So many of my comments have actually already been covered. I had questions about the hydrology and the retaining wall as well. I also had questions about the setbacks of this project as well as the sight lines. Aesthetically, I find this project to be a bit of a monolith and doesn't lend very well to the pedestrian environment. I had questions about the air circulation, as did one of our residents who wrote in. Noise mitigation, I believe it was Commissioner Lombardi covered that. As an aside, I love that this is bringing much needed housing, but it frustrates me that, or rather, I wish that more applicants would go beyond the bare minimum of affordable housing to get density bonuses, but that's just a general thought and has nothing to really do with this project. I also had a question about the range of alternatives on page ES5, the environmentally superior alternatives. Alternatives 1 through 3 were covered, but not 4 and 5. 5 being the option to not have subterranean parking. And I know that one of the callers, one of the people who called in was also talking about subterranean parking. And I would have just liked to have seen what the impact would be if there wasn't any subterranean parking. So I know on ES5, like I said, it covers alternatives 1 through 3, but not alternatives 4 and 5, unless I missed something, but I looked for it pretty thoroughly, I thought. I think that pretty much covers everything. Also, in the future, I was wondering if staff could come back with what the city's requirements are about hiring locally. Can we, I don't know if a note can be, I think I made an assumption about hiring the local hire as it relates to workforce on construction projects in the city. And so if we could get information about that at a future meeting, I would appreciate it. And I think those are all my notes.
Great, Commissioner Thomas, thank you. Commissioner Vinson.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Everyone covered everything so thoroughly, but I'll just reiterate some of the notes that I was most concerned about. The groundwater seems to be a major concern for everybody. The water table in this area seems to be an issue. So probably a more thorough study of that, and also more thorough notes on the mitigation and shoring of that. Another thing was the noise mitigation for the Ramada. I mean, with this construction going on, as long as it's going to go on right next door, it's going to be really hard for them to run and keep a business. And I also think we should look into a sound barrier that we can erect in between this construction site and the Ramada to, help with the patrons of that hotel. I also was wanting clarification on the vehicular access to, as far as commercial on Santa Monica and residential on West Knoll. In the summary, it says the access into the proposed mixed-use development would be from Santa Monica Boulevard for access to the commercial and part of the residential portion of the development, and from the north and from Northwest Knoll for the residential portion. So that kind of contradicts what's in the report and what Commissioner Caballero read. So better clarification on that. I think also it should be residential from West Knoll, commercial from Santa Monica. And then also I had a concern about people turning left from Santa Monica into this building and the queuing of the cars, and whether there's going to be an adequate left turn lane for the amount of cars that are going to have to turn without blocking the flow of traffic on Santa Monica. So those were my main points. I just wanted to reiterate because I think everybody else covered just about everything pretty thoroughly.
Great, Commissioner Vincent, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say a lot of what was surfaced during public comments and by my fellow commissioners were included in the comments that I had for this evening. I'll be honest, I actually did barely have a chance to give a review to letters from the sheriff's station and their representatives, as well as a letter from Mark Lehman. I didn't get to kind of, review them prior to the meeting just because they did come in later in great detail, but I did think that they surfaced some cogent points around things like, sheriff's resources, especially when, density increases, security measures, et cetera. I also know that this neighborhood, from a number of different conversations that we've had at Planning Commission and, in the community, that there is a real concern and I think real problem with the groundwater and water table. So in agreement with Commissioner Caballero that the hydrology section needs some work. I also just wanted to know, and I don't think I missed anything, but the housing element, the new housing element as it's currently proposed, is essentially requiring that every project in West Hollywood should require a formal archaeological resources assessment. And I know it's not approved yet, but I just think if that's the standard, that, it's interesting to me that this project does not have one of those. And again, unless I missed something, I do know that in the staff report and in the DEIR, there were measures mentioned for mitigation for cultural resources, but I do think that's a real concern and something that I would like to see addressed in more detail, especially for a project of this size. So I think that's everything. I don't think there's any need for me to reiterate, the comments of people in the community and my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Vincent, did you raise your hand? Is that what that was? No, a stretch. Okay. Anything else? We have any other questions for staff? Does staff have any questions of us in terms of our comments? Or have you heard enough? Okay. Well, thank you, members of the public. It looks like most of whom have signed off and maybe they're watching. Thank you very much for joining. Your comments are really, really important to what we do here and to this, are critical to the public process for any project that we do, but especially projects like this, of this size and scale. Okay, so moving on. One second. Okay, so moving on to item 12, that's unfinished business. We have none. Item 13 is excluded consent calendar. We have none. Item 14 is items from staff. 14A is our planning manager's update. And I will turn this over to Jennifer. I don't see Robin on, so Jennifer.
You're just me this evening. Good evening. We've got a relatively full meeting coming up on December 2nd. That's in 2 weeks, right? Yes, 2 weeks. it's. I always have to check if we have that extra week in there. So we're going to be seeing the billboard that was continued from the last meeting, 8730 Sunset. We will see the 1282 Fairfax Methodist Church Rehab Project. We'll be reviewing, just like we did tonight, another draft EIR, this one for the housing element. And then we'll be adopting the calendar for 2022 for the commission. And that'll be all of the commission and subcommittee meeting dates. On that note, we have coming up at subcommittee, if I can scroll faster. So we don't have any scheduled design review subcommittee meetings left for the year, but we plan to have a special meeting of the design review subcommittee on December 16th. It appears that all of the subcommittee members are available for that date, so that will be adopted with the calendar next time on December 2nd. But just for the public, if anyone's watching, and for you all to expect that, and that would have the treehouse portion of the Robertson Lane mixed-use Robertson Lane project, and then also an affordable housing project on Martel at 1041 Martel. Those are the items that we're planning to take to that special meeting. The Sunset Arts and Advertising Subcommittee, that we like to call SASSY, that one doesn't have any meeting dates left that have been authorized at this point. So again, next time on December 2nd, we'll be adopting a calendar and decide if we need additional dates for that subcommittee, which I fully expect that we will. And then the Long Range Planning Project Subcommittee, again, does not have any items at this time. There's no scheduled meetings left for this year. So that one is just waiting for items. And there's, I think, a lot ready to get on there, but they're just not there yet. I will also would like to say thank you to Commissioner Vinson for your service. And I realize I never even got to meet you in person, so hopefully someday our paths will cross in real life. But thank you for being here and for being so thoughtful and for reviewing everything so well. And we really appreciated your voice, and hopefully we'll hear it again soon. And I would also like to express my condolences to our Chair Hoopengarner and to her family, and also to Jake Stevens and to his family. So that's all I had for this evening, unless you have something for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Commissioner Dutta, we need to do public comment before commissioner comments. It's okay. I just want to make sure that's what you actually want to say.
Oh, no, I had a question for Jennifer.
Please go ahead.
I was just wondering if you knew when the materials for that December 2nd meeting would be made available, given the holiday next week.
We're planning to get them out before the holiday.
We thought we'd be off the hook for holiday travel, not having planning commission materials, but alas, we will have them.
I mean, we can wait if you want.
No, it's okay. That's quite all right. Okay, item 15. The squares keep getting larger and fewer. Item 15 is public comment. David, do we have any public speakers at this time?
Chair, no, we are all clear on this item. There are no public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I have my own separate agenda with my talking points, so excuse me. Okay, item 16 is our final item. This is any items from commissioners. I don't think we need to do anything as relates to the second item, which is subcommittee management. So I'm happy to take comments from commissioners at this time. Commissioner Carviero and Marquita.
I just want to wish my condolences to Commissioner Hoopengarner, or Chair Hoopengarner, and Jake Stevens. I consider them both friends, and it's sad to know or think that they're in pain right now. I also want to say thank you to Commissioner Vinson. Commissioner Vinson, this has been all very strange. Typically, Planning Commission is really fun. We have a chance to socialize before when we actually met in person, and then we would do our meetings and we would socialize afterwards, and you haven't had that opportunity at all. but I do want to say thank you for your time and for your insights, and I hope that our paths cross in the future. And Vice Chair Jones, thank you for clearly setting up a good base for our discussion tonight. It could have gone really sideways, and I think your introduction to the DEIR and how this discussion works was really great. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to send my condolences to Jake Stevens and Chair Garner. I know the funeral for Jake's mother is tomorrow, so if everyone could just send him good thoughts tomorrow. Also, Chair Garner, having lost my dad to COVID as well, my heart absolutely goes out to her. I also wanted to thank Commissioner Vinson, who I also have not gotten a chance to meet in person, but I did meet Commissioner Jones in person, which was amazing. She's taller than I thought she'd be, but it was great to finally see her in person. And finally, I just wanted to say that this is Transgender Awareness Week. Saturday is Trans Day of Remembrance. And I just wanted to say that 2021 marks the most deadly year for transgender people who mostly have been Black and Latinx. And I just wanted to draw attention to an event that the city is having, or the Transgender Advisory Board is having. It's a virtual event on Saturday at 6 p.m. where they'll be doing a reading of people who have lost their lives this year. And anyone interested can get information on that virtual event at weho.org/LGBTQ. That's it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Dutta.
Similar to what my fellow commissioners had said, my sincere condolences to our chair Garner and to Jake Stevens as well, and to Commissioner Vinson, who I also have not met in person. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you with everything. I really have appreciated your specific perspective working in construction. That's been really valuable to all the discussions we've had. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? Commissioner Vinson.
I too wanted to give my condolences to Chair Gardner and Jake Stevens for, or just give my condolences, sorry. My heart goes out to them, and to remind everyone to get vaccinated and get your boosters, because these are deaths that could have possibly been prevented. And then also I wanted to thank all of your, to my fellow commissioners, all your comments today, tonight, and thank you for all your kind words.
Thank you, Commissioner Vinson. Commissioner Lombardi.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Vinson. I don't want to repeat myself in the effort of sparing everyone time, but obviously my heart goes out to everyone that's had to deal with family loss. There's one item I wanted to bring up actually, and it's interesting because we had some of this discussion with the EIR report today. I was just wondering if it's possible for city staff to just take a look at I believe it is the Melrose Triangle project right across from Verve Coffee Roasters at Almont and Melrose. There's I know that a lot of water is being pumped into the stormwater system, and probably all the permits are there, but I notice every time I go by, there's always water being pumped out, regardless of when it last rained. So back to the discussion of water tables, I'd assume all the permits are there, but I've wondered myself when I've walked by, and I've noticed it now consistently twice. So that was the only real comment I wanted to add.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Lombardi. I've said everything. I'll say it again. I never want to make an example out of anyone else's pain, certainly, and I hope I didn't speak out of turn. Encouraging people to get their vaccinations and booster shots, but it really is real. And I think just it seems so easy to ignore until it affects somebody that I believe Chair Garner's father was actually scheduled to get his booster in like a matter of days before his passing, after his passing. So it's just, and I know this isn't the, Public Health and Public Safety Commission, but, I would just encourage protect the ones you love and the ones they love. I also just want to thank Commissioner Vincent again. I was so surprised that you'd be leaving, but I also, again, like you came on, we're so competent from very early on. I don't know that I could say the same about myself on Planning Commission when I started 6+ years ago, but your knowledge will be very much missed. You've been a very zen, lovely person to work with, and you will be missed. So be interested to see who fills your shoes, but wishing you all the best until we meet again, hopefully in person.
Thank you.
Unless anyone has anything else, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. We will adjourn to a regularly scheduled meeting on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021, beginning at 6:30 p.m. until completion via teleconference with detailed instructions for participation included on the posted agenda. Thank you to everyone, including our secretary and staff, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Good night.